Okay. Oh, he says, yes, I'm signed in. Waiting to let me in. Yeah, I know. Oh, we're good. Okay. Good afternoon, or good evening, everyone, and welcome to the information session of the Chatham Airport Commission on Wednesday, April 10th, 2024, beginning at 6 p.m. Remote participation is available, and we are in the large meeting room of the Annex on George Ryder Road. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29th, 2023 signing of the Acts of 2023, extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general law, Section 30A, subsection 20, until March 31st, 2025, this meeting of the Chatham Airport Commission is being conducted both in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that people who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 508-945-4410 and use conference ID 968-844-845 followed by the pound sign. Or you can join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV, Xfinity Channel 8 and 1072, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide real-time access. We will post a record of the proceedings on the town's website as soon as possible. So that said, we will begin the meeting, and I will start with a roll call for the commissioners. Commissioner Burke?
Here.
Commissioner Cortese?
Here.
Commissioner Galen?
Here.
Commissioner Hobeck?
Present.
Commissioner Owens?
Here.
Commissioner Schultz?
Here.
And the chair says here. Okay. Just so I lay some ground rules for everyone, the way this will proceed is we will go through the agenda with a presentation, which I hope generates some of the questions that you might have at the end of the presentation. We will alternate for the questions from remote to here in the room. So we'll go back and forth. That way everyone will get an equal chance. Remember, it'll be questions and answers only, so no digital presentations or anything like that this evening. I hope that this is a first of more to come in the future. And that said, we will proceed. One of the things that we're very proud of this year is that this is the 75th year of the Chatham Airport Commission. In 1949, the airport was certified by the Massachusetts Airport Commission, and also at the same time, the local Chatham Airport Commission was certified. So we're proud of that 75-year history. One of the things that we want to make sure of that you all get your questions answered this evening as best as we can. If we can't answer a question, we'll take it under advisement and we will try to get an answer out on our website as soon as we can. The paramount responsibility of the Chatham Airport Commission certainly is safety, and I want to really emphasize that. Safety, safety, safety. What we do has the word safety written into it, no matter what it is. And this is for everybody, the airport users, the neighbors and visitors, and those people in the air and certainly on the ground. We want to be a good friend, a good neighbor, and at the same time, we want to try to enhance the aviation experience for everybody. We feel that our mission is to support the airport as best we can, whether it's the infrastructure, whether it's the manager, the restaurant, whatever it happens to be. Our mission is to support the airport and keep it a viable operating entity in the town. I'm going to turn it over just briefly to Commissioner Schultz, who's going to talk about the Fly Friendly program. And do you need this over there? No, you're good. Okay.
Well, good evening, everybody. I think I've had a chance to go around the room and meet a few of the folks here. For those who I haven't, welcome. Before we get started, I just want to point out that if you've come in late, there's some brochures on the back table. We're going to be talking about that. And as I walk through the presentation here, noise is the most common complaint that airports get. And that's not just the Chatham Airport, that's airports across the country. If you want to test that, just go do a Google search for airport noise complaints, and you'll see pages and pages of airports that are struggling with this issue. The FAA, who regulates most of the airports throughout the United States, the FAA recognized that noise is an issue, and that in order to really understand the issue, they needed to conduct a detailed study of that effect. The FAA went ahead and launched a study that surveyed neighbors around airports, small and large, throughout the United States, and there was a conclusion that came out that, not surprising, that people today are more sensitive and more annoyed, and that was the measure, by noise than they've ever been. And that's not surprising. I think all of our lives have noise, background noise in it. And one of the conclusions of the study was that different types of noise annoy people differently. And this should not be a surprise to anybody, but noise that occurs in the evening hours, and the FAA was very specific, between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m., noise during those periods has the highest quotient, if you will, for annoyance for airport neighbors and people around the community. The second item that they identified, which was problematic, was that the frequency of noise. So if there was a one-time event, a big bang, that has a different annoyance factor than a noise that's repetitive and is happening over and over a period of time. So taking all that in consideration, the Airport Commission, starting back in about August and September of last year, particularly after the busy flying season, recognized that we need to address the issue and be aware of what's happening and try to take whatever steps that the Airport Commission can do to help mitigate some of the annoying factors. We started with examining the current activities that we've had. And if you would just take a look at that Fly Friendly brochure, this has been a program that's been at the airport for a number of years now. And the Fly Friendly program is not new. It's not new to the Chatham Airport. But what we decided that it warranted was to re-examine each of the elements that are in the Fly Friendly program and to see if there's something that we could do, again, to help mitigate the annoyance factor. Now, to be very honest, airports make noise. We understand that. But within those boundaries, there are things that can be done. And that was our intent, was to do that examination and make sure that we're doing everything possible to help alleviate some of the stress and annoyance. We started the process by listening to you, and we have been listening. We have people who have come to our Airport Commission meetings and have voiced concerns over different activities. We've listened to it. We then went ahead and conducted a meeting with airport users at the airport here in Chatham. We hosted a gathering at the hangar one November day, and we presented to the airport users, mostly pilots or airplane owners, we introduced to them the fact that we are getting more and more aircraft noise complaints, and that we needed to address the issue as best we could. And it was during that presentation that a participant said, you know, most of the noise that we're getting is not necessarily coming from people that have airplanes based at Chatham, but from people who are coming in flying transitly from outside of Chatham. And specifically, this was unprompted, not prompted by me, specifically they said airplanes that are coming in early morning or coming in late at night. We think those are people coming from outside of Chatham. And so the suggestion was made by the users group that Chatham institute a voluntary curfew. And so what you're going to see in this brochure is the first time that Chatham's had this, but we're going to enact a voluntary curfew immediately, starting at 10 p.m. and ending at 7 a.m. Now, I want to just make sure, oh, thank you. I just want to make sure that I'm clear on the expectation. It is illegal for an airport to take a publicly funded airport like Chatham or like Hyannis or any other airport on the Cape and restrict the hours of operation. It's a public use airport. The airport's open to the public, and it has to be open and accessible 24/7. But there's a social aspect to this as well, and we're trying to set an expectation that the normal operating hours are before 10 p.m. and occur after 7 a.m. in the morning. We're going to take that message and we're going to communicate it to not only people that are based at the Chatham Airport, but we're going to take it to the predominantly charter operators that come in and out of the airport. Now, we know who they are. We have the capability of tracking essentially every airplane that comes in and departs out of Chatham. There are two major charter companies that use this airport, and both of them will be having in-person meetings, telephone meetings, and letters written to them to really emphasize the expectation that the Airport Commission has that this voluntary curfew is followed as closely as possible. We're going to be publishing this information as well in publications that pilots use when they're doing their flight planning. If they're unfamiliar with an airport, they'll go ahead and look at these documents and use whatever information is available for their flight planning. And right up front, it will say that there's a curfew in this airport, a voluntary curfew. In addition to that, we will be tracking the violators of the curfew. And I use that word strongly. It's those people who are flying during the curfew period. We'll be tracking them, and if necessary, we'll be writing letters to them or contacting them directly to ask them to honor the request for the voluntary curfew. We're going to go ahead and communicate with people coming in and out of Chatham by having signs outside the entrance gates. There are two ways to enter the airport. One is the gate right next to the hangar, and then on the backside there's a gate that can be used with a vehicle. And on both locations there will be signs that announcing that there's a voluntary curfew. There's some other ways to put some signage up that we'll be exploring. At the end of every airport, or at the end of every runway, there are signs now that give advice to a pilot on the best way to depart from the airport to leave the smallest footprint possible. and we'll be amending that to reflect some of the changes that we have in the updated fly-friendly program. We'll be tracking, as you've probably seen at airport commission meetings, we track the number of aircraft operations that come in and out of the airport. In addition, this past year, because there's a sensitivity to the larger PC-12 aircraft, we started breaking out of the total number of operations. We started breaking out the PC-12 activity specifically so that we could monitor that and see what the trends have been. And we'll be adding to that the number of infractions, if you will, of the voluntary curfew. So we'll be able to start tracking actually how many times it occurs and see what steps after, we can see the effect of some of the steps that we hopefully will be taking in the future. So again, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And so we're going to be measuring it from this point forward. And so that concludes the fly-friendly update.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let me just move back to the presentation. And this, I will turn this over to Commissioner Galen. You want this?
Yeah. Please. Not for this, but for the website itself. Okay. The Chatham Airport Commission has undertaken a mission to become more transparent, more open, more interactive with the community at large. And as part of that, we decided we needed our own website. We needed a website that we felt could answer questions, provide information, the kind of questions we get from the public, from airport users, and maybe some things that they're not even thinking to ask us. Right now, we meet once a month, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, for a couple of hours, depending on agenda, and that's it as a public body. But we know questions occur much more often than once a month. So we felt a website would be one way to be able to address the questions on a 24/7 basis, because a website will be operating around the clock. Right now, the website is timed for official launch May 1st, again, in conjunction with the 75th anniversary of the commission and of the airport. But the, quote, beta site is operating now. At last month's meeting of the Airport Commission, we discussed the website and gave out the web address so we could get comments and suggestions from members of the public. We will be posting the web address on the Chatham government page for the Airport Commission in the next couple of days, so anyone that would like to go to the website to take a look at what's coming officially May 1st can do so. And as I said, we are looking for input. We would like to know what kinds of things the public would like to see on the site. Again, the point of the website is candid information, interactive with the public. And it's a resource. We intend it as a resource, again, for users of the airport, for people interested in the airport. And a user can be a pilot, it can be someone going to the restaurant, et cetera. Let's actually open up the site. This is one look at the website. Now, the website's built on what's called a responsive theme. What that means in very simple terms, whether you look at it on a phone, a tablet, on a laptop, on a widescreen laptop, or a desktop, the image will adjust to that medium. So for example, this homepage is a little tighter, a little narrower than if you were looking at this on a desktop. So some of the buttons will be in a different position than they are on the screen, but all the functionality and all of the information will be the same. The goal of the site is to make it simple and easy to use, especially for people that aren't necessarily very web savvy or computer savvy. We also try to think of what are the things that are most prominent, most important. And if you notice, right there on the homepage, as soon as you click on the web address and come up to it, the noise comment form button is right there. When it was said earlier in this meeting that we understand noise complaints are #1 at airports throughout the country, we meant it. And our goal is to make it simpler and easier for anyone to lodge a complaint. Part of getting this information to is also gives us some solid data to get an idea of really what's on people's minds when it comes to noise. So we've got a form. Apologize, I'm not used to this computer. That will ask you to fill out some information so we know exactly what you're talking about. When it happened, where, what time. As Bill mentioned, we're very interested especially in what goes on between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. We really want to hear if you're hearing flights in and out at those hours and when. This data is what we need to do something about the issue. We can't just work from speculation. It's what we want, what the FAA would like. Now, as I mentioned, go back to the home. There's the button right there on that page. Button's also here under Community. And here under Community. Same thing. The point is, we put things in many places. We did not want to speculate and try to say, they're always going to go here. No. We understand that people have different ways of going to websites and using them, so we wanted to make it as easy to find what you want as possible. And we'll keep doing that. The other thing about this website, it's a living website. By that I mean we will change it, and we're going to change it on a constant basis. Again, based on suggestions we get from the public, based on things that we learn and understand and such. I'll give you one quick example. Since last month's meeting, we have added, for example, these graphics on the pilot site showing the flight patterns for landing at Chatham Municipal Airport. This wasn't here a month ago. We will keep doing this. As we get more data, more information that we can add to the site, we will add it. As we get requests for things to be put on the site, if it's feasible, we'll add it. The beauty of a website is it's virtually endless and open. We're not constricted to size and to location. We can add pages, we can add links, we can add buttons. And links are important as an information source. I said airport users, we have not just things on the website, on the airport like the restaurant, but a pilot coming or someone coming to Chatham that's never been before, we've got links to the Chatham Chamber of Commerce and the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce. Why? Because if you've never been to the Cape or to Chatham, you might not know much about it. But here's a way for you to find out easily some information about Chatham, what Chatham has to offer. Again, this is intended as an information resource for anyone, the community at large, and airport users as well. It's our website for the community. It's our website for you. We really need and want your input. Without it, it's hollow. Like I said, we will post this web address on the Chatham Government, Chatham Airport Commission page so you can find it. And please, tell us what you think. Tell us what we need to do. Tell us how to make it better and easier for you to use.
Yeah, and you can email the Airport Commission very easily, from the current Airport Commission site. Excuse me. So one of the things, if you read my column in the paper last week, the You Guessed It column, Some of the things you're going to see here are from that. I use that as a guide. There's a lot of information that is out there that is not exactly correct. And I think one of the things that pushed us for this meeting was to make sure that you heard right from us exactly what, call it the truth, is. We do not have any hidden agenda, which we've been accused of for expansion of the airport or increasing airport traffic or the types of planes. Chatham will remain pretty much as it is now. And I don't mean pretty much that, yeah, we're going to sneak something in later. That's not what I mean. We have airplanes that come in that are legal to come into this airport right now, and we are not doing anything to encourage other types of aircraft that are bigger or commercial service or anything like that. So I just want to get that right out there, right from the beginning. And this goes right into our obstruction removal program. At the outset of this meeting, we talked about safety. And as I said, everything that we do is based on safety. And the obstruction removal program is part of that. And for those of you who aren't sure, it's basically trimming and removing some trees that are encroaching on or intruding on navigable airspace. Without going into detail, we have found over the last several years that there are trees on certain properties that are actually intruding into the airspace and making it unsafe for planes coming in and likewise for people on the ground underneath. Should an airplane, fly into one of those trees. And this is what let me back up a little bit. In 2015, we had a land use inspection by the FAA. And one of the things they said in that inspection was that they expected us to remove or trim trees that were intruding into the airspace. So we did a study, we looked at what those trees were, and we have, since then, we have a corrective action plan, which we have sent to the FAA and said that over the next few years, we will take as one of our priorities to fix that issue and make sure that trees are removed. And again, like I said, there's no plan or purpose or hidden agenda to encourage larger aircraft. And I'll keep repeating this because it's important for you to understand this, to utilize this airport. And in questionable weather conditions or otherwise. Just not going to be where we're going. The obstruction removal project basically, again, is a safety precaution that the FAA, through the land use inspection, has required us to do, and we're moving forward with that. And I know there's been a lot of conversation and meetings on the how this is being done, and how many trees are coming down, how many acres of trees, how are they being removed? What about the vernal pool? There's been lots and lots of conversation about this with our Conservation Commission, within our own Airport Commission, and also with the Cape Cod Commission. And we want to be in compliance with both of those groups, the local group and the Cape Cod group. And we're working hard to do that. The project is moving along, albeit slowly, but everyone has been notified of their situation with regard to the trees on their property. And we started doing this 2 years ago. We went to everyone who's affected by the tree removal. What we're trying to do is make those approaches for the pilots safer. And again, I reiterate the word safe. The airport is not expanding, and we're not encouraging more aircraft of any type to use the airport. So what we're going to see at the annual town meeting are several warrant articles with regard to the approach map. And also a Scrivener's error that has to be corrected. The 1958 approach map is out of date. Since that time, things have changed. Aircraft have changed. The runway has changed. And we have to bring the approach map that's posted on our website and reflected on for the government that we have now established the new 2024 map. And because it's a bylaw change, it'll have to be voted on at town meeting. And basically, all it's doing, it's not changing how the airplanes come in. It's not changing the altitudes at which they come in. It's not really making any changes except on the map, it's showing what is the approach zone as described by the FAA for the types of aircraft that come in here. And as I said, it will reflect what's in use today. And the pilots have been using this map for a long time. They don't physically use the map, but the approach zones have been in effect for a long time. Ever since we had the circling approach established and the GPS area navigation approach. Ever since those were established, the approach zone has been the shape that we're trying to bring that 1958 map to. So it's really just a very simple change. Doesn't affect really anybody. All property owners whose trees have been, who are affected, have been contacted because the new map is what we used when we contacted the property owners. We didn't use the 1958 map, we used the new map. So everyone under the new map knows that, and they have been contacted, and if they have trees that are encroaching on the approach surface, then they have been notified. And I basically just said that second bullet. And then once the 2024 map is approved, those in the approach zone will receive a written notice by law, we have to do it, that the amendment has been approved and that they are in that area. They should know by now since we've already contacted them. But there may be some people that we haven't, because maybe they didn't have trees that were encroaching. And I basically did, there's what I've almost just said. The list of properties added under the 2024 map approach zone will be posted on the Airport Commission website. And we'll get that list out there just as soon as possible. And then the second bullet, that those in the approach zone, unless, and again, sometime in the future, a property owner under the 2024 map approach zone has trees growing into the approach surface, this amendment will have no effect whatsoever on them. So if they have a tree that's getting close, they could be affected by it in the future. But right now, they're not affected. And let me see if I can make this bigger. That's a little bigger. The yellow zone, the yellow striping here, is the in-between area between the 1958 map, which is the white inside, and the new map, which is on the outside. So the yellow zone is those four little slivers that encompass what's been added underneath the approach zone from the 1958 map. Let me see if I can bring this a little bit larger, a little focus on one of them. Yeah. So the other thing that we're going to do, we'll get a list out to everyone who's in those yellow zones. We'll get it out, like I said, as soon as possible. But we will also be posting on our website an interactive map that you can access and see if your property or part of your property is in that yellow area. One thing you have to remember is that as this zone moves away from the airport and out, in this case, the one moves out over Nantucket Sound, it's rising. It's not flat. It does not come out flat to the surface, parallel to the surface of the ground. It is rising. And as you get further and further away, for example, if you live here on Pine Drive or Cranberry Lane or one of these out, further out, you'll never have a tree that's going to encroach. So you have nothing to worry about. And like I said, we'll be taking, questions on this to clarify anything in a few minutes. So I think I've covered everything. Any commissioners have anything they want to add to this part of the conversation? We good? All right. Okay. So we will now go to the question and answer period, and like I said, we'll take people here. If you have any questions, come up to the microphone and identify yourself. And are you going to take names so we know who's here, if you don't mind? Yeah, identify yourself and tell us where you live.
Good evening. My name is Leah Weldridge. I live in River Bay. And can you put up the approach surfaces there again, please?
Could you speak closer to the mic?
I will try.
Yep, there you go.
Just curious, are those the visual approach surfaces, or are we trying to put in straight-in approach?
No, it is the approach surface for the outside trapezoid is the approach surface.
For
regardless.
visual,
Both.
so are the obstruction removal activities that we're doing geared towards eventually publishing a RNAV straight-in approach?
We already have one.
You have circling
We have a
approaches.
GPS RNAV approach now.
To LNAV minimums or circling?
It goes to circling.
Right, okay, so I'm asking a straight-in, non-precision approach, not a
Yep,
circling
an
approach.
LPV.
Just
That's
an
what
LNAV would be fine,
We're
really.
aiming for an LPV approach with vertical guidance, and the FAA has said to us that we are, once the trees go, we're qualified for that.
That's interesting. That's very-
Under the current conditions, we don't have to make anything larger, we don't have to, enlarge our RPZs, we don't have to, change the dimensions of this. These are the dimensions that we have for the straight-in LPV approaches with vertical guidance.
Okay, good. That's was my main question, because, it's quite well understood that straight-in, particularly vertically guided approaches are far safer than circling, having flown many myself. Circling approaches can get a little sporty, and particularly at night, So I applaud you all for what you're doing, and I'm glad to hear that we can get an LPV in there. It'd be wonderful.
Yep, that's what we're aiming for. And the other thing with the LPV approach is that it will split the approaches now, because we'll come in from the 2-4 side on the northeast, and they can also now come in straight in on the 6 side without circling.
I think another good point about the vertically guided approaches is that in a stabilized descent, you're going to be at a lower power setting, and it should help reduce your noise on the approach.
Yes, that's the other good thing
A
about it.
couple of good
the
benefits,
noise
rather than
level.
diving and driving in
Right.
low altitude, high power.
Yep.
It should make it a much better solution.
You know, that's what we're aiming for.
Thank you very much, I
Oh,
appreciate
you're
it.
very welcome. Thank you for your comments.
Just to be clear on that, the work that's being done in conforming the map has nothing to do with a straight-in approach, an LPV approach, or any other approach. This is for making sure that the arrival corridors at the airport don't have obstructions in them. So this is, and while that is an important consideration for all approaches, not necessarily for an LPV or a straight-in or any other approach, this is to make the airport conform as it is today.
It's just updating your maps.
That's correct.
They need to go to
You have to go back.
Yeah.
you need to go to the speaker.
Yeah, this is updating the maps,
Yeah.
which should have been done long before.
Long time ago.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Anyone else, let's see, anyone online with a hand up? I don't see anybody.
I don't see anybody yet.
Okay, anyone else then from the people in here?
Okay.
Please identify yourself.
Yeah, my name is Eric Bender. I live on, with my wife on Woodland Way in North Chatham in the Harbor Coves area. We were talking about trees a little while ago, and frankly, I don't know whether you're talking about 5 trees or 5,000 trees. And we've been talking about trees now for 2 years at least. I think you mentioned that. Where do we get to see a map of the properties, the areas around the airport and also within the airport property where trees, where you plan to remove trees?
It's on our website currently.
Okay, you have a map there?
Yep, it's on the, actually, we can show it to you. Terry, can you pull that up? Would that be easy for you? I can't do it here. It's on the town site. Yeah, it's not on our new website. It's on the town site.
So you want to pull up, because they're in multiple,
ALP. I think it's on the,
yeah, so the ALP I can pull up, or I can pull up the EA, multiple, I'll pull up the ALP right now.
I think the ALP shows it pretty well.
Yeah, that's,
Oh, actually,
While he's doing that, just to fill some time here, the
I actually have it.
the survey of where the trees are that are encroaching in the approach to the airport was conducted using a drone technology, where it was able to specifically identify by tree what tree is encroaching into it. So it's not like, well, let's just cut all the trees. We're very sensitive to that as well. We like trees. We just don't like them in the approach path. And so the detailed survey was conducted.
Terry, I have it.
okay, yeah, it's
I have it right here.
on 7. Yeah, I'm not,
Here, this is, I can make this a
Okay.
little bigger.
Okay, that's
I have the
great.
ALP plan as
I was not aware of that. May I ask one other question while I'm here? Can I ask another question?
yeah,
Okay. So the other question has to do with curfew, the voluntary curfew, and in conjunction with the new website. And as I understand it, data will be acquired by the operators of the website and input by residents in the area for aircraft that violate the curfew. But I also understand that you have absolutely no authority to do anything about flights that come in within the curfew time. You can't stop it. I've heard of pilots that have said they're going to fly whenever they want. So tell me, with the data that you're going to collect and with the attitude of I'm going to fly whenever I want, what are you going to do about it?
We have no authority to do anything about it. All
That's
we
what
can
I
do-
thought.
all
Thank
we-
you.
We're not a regulatory organization. That would be the FAA that would have to do that.
Can you explain the chart?
Yes. The gentleman asked about trees that were in the area that are coming down. The splotch map makes it look a lot worse than it actually is, but those are just general areas. And the circles with little red splotches in the middle of the circles are just one little area that the drone found, or when they did the LiDAR survey several years ago, that they found certain trees that just happened to stick out. But this is the runway 6 at job lot end. And the other thing I'd like to kind of indicate here, that yellow dotted line is basically the line that we figured from the end of the runway, anything to the right of that line, that yellow dotted line, could be subject to tree removal. But remember what I said, that approach profile rises. So anything to the left of that yellow dotted line, you'd have to have a pretty big tree in there to be encroaching on the approach surface. So to the right, there may be some, but you can see that they're really only just the ones closer in that are problematical.
What are the orange shaded splotches? What is that?
The orange blotches are houses.
He's got to get up on the microphone if he's going to talk.
Where did that come from? Yeah, if you'd like to speak, you have to go to the microphone because we're trying to pick it up on the television. And we can't do that unless you go to the microphone.
Did you want the mic?
But the orange is the area of clearing.
Okay, and here's the other end. Oops. Oops, wait a minute. I made this bigger, hold on. And this is the runway 24 end. But, hang on just a second. Runway 6, runway 24, this is the end. Over Agnes Lane is the area just to the left of the yellow dotted line. And there's just a few trees in there. And all those people in that area have been notified. The green line, I didn't say this on the other diagram, but the green line represents the 2024 map. And again, the red is the set of trees right at the end of the runway. So there are quite a few in there. Commissioner Cortese.
Yeah, just a quick clarification on the shaded orange area. We had mentioned that the numbers in orange are the houses. The shaded orange area, can you just explain that again? Chairman
Is it
Harrison?
orange or the red? Or am I confusing?
Or it's kind of an orangish red, it looks like.
Well, the red splotch, that big splotch, it looked like someone spilled something.
Yeah.
Are the trees that are subject to removal.
So is that clear cut on the airport property?
No. Some may, but some may not. We're going to try not to do any clear cutting unless it's absolutely necessary.
So the point is, it's very close to the airport.
Yeah, that's very
runway.
clear. You can see it's very close to the end.
Almost
of the
on
runway.
airport property.
Yeah, yeah,
Just about all. Okay. Thank you.
yep. And again, going back to the other map. Oops, other way. Oh, my goodness, sorry. And again, when you said orange, I thought you were talking about the orange, the buildings, like Job Lot there is 1674. But yeah, those purple splotches, it comes off orange there, it's purple on mine, but yes, that's where now, someone said something earlier about acreage. This whole area, I think, constitutes no more than 5 acres. And there have been numbers that have been thrown out, that 50 acres, tens of thousands of trees, not happening. Okay. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name's Walt Kruger, 4 Sulphur Springs in Chatham. I have 2 questions. The first one, I want to segue on the prior gentleman's question regarding the fly-friendly. Now, I understood when I was listening to Commissioner Schultz say that you are going to monitor the violators, contact them, but then I heard someone else say that, no, we can't do anything, and the only way to track it is by going to the website. I mean, you have no means of tracking the violators
Yes, yes. we
as an
do.
airport
Yeah.
commission?
No, I'm sorry, but I didn't misspeak. We cannot do anything from a policing
Right, I
point of view.
understand that.
That we cannot do.
But I was led to believe by Commissioner Schultz's that you would write a letter, you would contact them. Can you
If we,
That's correct.
do
Yes, if
anything
we-
else other than that?
if we have the information, we know the aircraft,
Yeah.
we can do that. We can use the tail number and look it up and write a letter.
How are you going to find that out? On the
Well-
website, someone complaining that there's noise?
No, every month, we get a report
Yeah,
on all of the flight operations that come in and out of Chatham.
okay.
We can look at that report and identify what time they came and went, so therefore we know when they've gone, if they violated the curfew. We know the tail number of the aircraft, and we can look up through the FAA database the owner of the airplane, and we can then respond to them with a letter.
Okay, and who, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just to give you a little sense, it was probably a little over a year ago, we had an airplane come in, or actually it was departing, and it was a very loud antique type airplane, and really, we got a lot of complaints from it.
Right.
The chairman went ahead and wrote a letter to the owner of the airplane, who was, I believe, out of Tennessee, if my recollection's right. And we alerted him, included a fly-friendly brochure, and alerted them to, we like our town, and we like the peacefulness of our town, and your airplane broke that, that noise and broke through it. It turned out to be an oil company that owned the airplane. It was an antique airplane, and the president of the company wrote back and said, "I am so sorry. I just wasn't really thinking."
Right.
And he, in fact, was visiting Chatham, and he said, "It's a lovely town, and, I will not be bringing that airplane back into Chatham." So it's not going to get everybody. I get it.
That sounds like a one-off. I'm concerned about the people that fly in here regularly. Whose responsibility is it to track and write letters? Is that one of the commissioners here, or is that?
If we know about it.
Clerical
If we
person?
know about it and we can find out who it is, we'll do our best to contact them.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
That's the
right.
best, that's the best
all
we
you
can
can do,
do.
I
I mean,
guess.
if someone comes in late at night and then picks someone up and then
Right.
leaves, we'll never know who that is.
Well,
Unless we can go back through Flight Aware and
Right,
figure it
that's-
out,
My second question, I want to clarify that I thought I heard you, Mr. Huntley, say that we're not interested in expanding the airport.
That's
Is that
correct.
physically, or is that the number of flights?
Both,
I'm sorry?
both.
Both, okay.
We can't expand it physically,
All
it's
right,
impossible.
So I believe Chatham Spars Inn signed a contract with a jet company to fly their VIPs in here for weekend specials or whatever. Did they contact the airport commission to see if that was okay to have these fly in here?
Nope, it was a
So what if
it was a
Wild
surprise
Goose or
to us.
Quasit want to do the same thing? Does that mean that, excuse me, there's going to be more airplanes flying in here?
I think,
And
that-
who has control over how many planes come in here?
No one. It's a public use airport. Planes can come in and leave all they want. It's like a highway.
All right, so you have no control if Wild Goose or Quasit does the same thing that Chatham's Bar Inn is doing, and we have triple the jets coming in.
The only thing we can do, and no one's contacted us this year for this
Right.
coming season, the only thing we can do is speak to them, find out what times they're coming in, what the frequency will be, and try to give them some kind of, warning that, hey, let's not come in too early, let's not come in too late.
Well, thank you for your response. It sounds like an expansion to me, but it is
It's
what
not,
it is.
but not on our part.
Where do we live, in Chatham? Is this a Chatham airport? Who's responsible?
Can I make a point on the
Anyone?
traffic?
We cannot control how many airplanes come into the airport. We can only suggest to
So
the
if
operators.
we expand the number of flights, that's okay? and
Well, we
there's
don't
nothing
know
we
if
can
they
do?
will or not. In fact, I think the CBI program flopped.
Okay.
It had zero participants last summer. It was a marketing ploy. They put the ads out, but no one partook of it.
Okay, well, you have the facts and figures. I just have my gut feeling.
And Wequasit
Yeah.
is coming in on Pleasant Bay. They tried out, they were experimenting with seaplanes, which is fine.
Okay, all right, then I shouldn't be concerned. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman Harrison?
Yeah, go
I have a
ahead.
point. One other thing that I know all of us do, and I know the airport manager does, is if we see something, and the local pilots, if we see someone coming in loud or late at night, or if there are other issues, we'll go up and speak to them. And I've done that in many occasions before. And I know other pilots have, and I know the airport manager has done that. So it's a multi-faceted approach, and I have a feeling that if a pilot gets a note or a letter, and it's not a one-off, it's going to start a trend. So it may start now, and it'll take a little bit of time, but we're trying to start a trend of reducing noise and reducing time, late nights and early mornings that people are going to come in. I have a kind of a thought in my head. If you were driving down the road and every time you went 36 miles an hour versus 35, and you got a letter in the mail, or you got an email, would that change your behavior? I think it would, and I think it's going to start changing that, and that's the approach we're trying.
Thank you. Next.
My name's Harriet Prout. I'm on Shattuck Place. I attended the conservation meeting two weeks ago and was told that and your consultants were there, and they confirmed that it's 62 acres of trees that will be removed from the area, not just from the vernal pool and the cranberry bog, but all that red is equal to 62 acres of trees. And if you want to look at the Conservation Commission meeting, she actually explains that, and your consultants did not say it was not true.
I was there, and what we're dealing with there is there's a vegetation management plan for the entire airport. And as I understand it, now I'll bring on our consultant in a second just to corroborate what I'm saying, but the 62 acres includes what they call the transition zones, which on larger airports, they want those clear. But as I understand it, those trees will not have to come down.
Well, it was too many trees. They kept on saying it's too many trees to count, and so we will count the trees after they're cut down. And that just seemed kind of crazy to me. Why wouldn't you want to know how many trees they're going to cut down before they cut them? And they said there's too many trees to count and that they're going to be cutting down. And so I just want you to be aware that it's not just 5 or 6 acres of trees. It's 62 acres of trees and hundreds of trees. And that was said by Janet Williams at the conservation meeting.
Was it said by our consultant?
She was right there, and she did not say, I turned to her, and she nodded her head.
Well, let me see if she's on, because I asked her to be here. Is Adrienne here? Is she there?
I don't see her, but I do see Mark.
Mark, can you respond to that, please?
Sure. It's Marco Terranov from Gale Associates. Huntley is right. The area that we're clearing, the 5 acres of the approach zones, the overall VMP that we're discussing includes those transitional surfaces, which is a much larger area, which was what was referred to. The approach zones are what we're clearing now, and that is the 5 acres.
It's 62 acres of
Do we have
of
anything
trees
on the
being removed.
transition areas yet from the vegetation management plan? I'm sorry, did you hear what I said, Mark?
No, I didn't. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. The vegetation management plan talks about the transition areas. And
Yes, it does.
I heard somewhere along the line that the FAA is not going to require us to remove those trees?
As far as I understand it, that is a future sort of a long-term project that is not going to happen within the next 3 to 5 years. I'm sorry, it's on the schedule for the next 3 to 5 years, but there's a lot of other things that would need to happen in order for those trees to be considered eligible for funding to be removed.
Okay, so funding has something to do with it, and,
Yes.
okay, all right. Does that help?
No, it was the cutting. They said the cutting was going to start next January of the 62 acres and hundreds and
No,
hundreds of trees.
that's incorrect. It's just the 5 acres at
Well,
the
you can-
approach
you-
zones.
You can watch the Conservation Commission meeting, and that's what was discussed at that meeting
I
2
was there.
weeks ago.
I was there.
I know you were
Yeah.
there, but everybody else can also look at it and see that it's 62 acres, hundreds and hundreds of trees, and it's going to start next January.
Well, I can assure you that that's not going to happen. We're just focusing on the approach ends of the runways. Okay, thanks, Mark. Next, Ms. Lofgren.
Hello there, Paula Lofgren, Chatham, Mass. And I have questions about the fly-friendly new brochure. But before I even ask my questions, what I would like to do is thank all of the pilots who may be watching or sitting here in the last 9 years since we developed the original brochure, for all those pilots who have given the Hill a wide berth. It has severely increased our quality of life, and we appreciate your efforts. For the people on the commission who don't know that I was on the commission when we made this first brochure. My question has to do with the map and the change of wording at the bottom, fly a tight traffic pattern as practical. That is new wording from the other brochure, and there's a little map at the bottom that's a bit difficult to make out. And I was wondering, is this map the same map that Mike pulled up when he was showing the website? Is that the approach to 24?
No, this was just something that, it's not the same one. This one has both of them, 24 and 6 superimposed.
Okay,
It's
is it
not-
possible?
And those lines aren't exact. It all depends on it's not a map that you actually follow.
Well, no,
It's a
is
suggested
it possible
route.
to, is it possible to pull up the map, the approach to 24 map on the screen that's on the website?
Hang on.
Because I would assume that that is what is going to be published is how to come in. I'm not sure exactly what a tight traffic pattern as practical is. We spent a lot of time discussing 9 years ago exactly what was the preferable path to keep the aircraft above away from the crest of that hill.
One of the things.
So is this what you consider a tight?
Just to start off with,
Okay.
again, it says not to be used for navigation.
Okay.
That's crucial.
Excellent.
because
Thank you.
it's
Good
not a-
piece of
not a-
information.
Not a valid, map for pilots to use. It is just a suggested route.
So can
that
someone on
coming
the,
in, coming in from out of state or wherever, visiting, this gives them an idea of a visual start point out here by the lighthouse on Harding's Beach. And then going into the 45 angle to the downwind leg, and then the base leg, and then the final leg. And one of the things, this is the school, this is the water towers, and we, on purpose, took it out here as a suggested route. And
so is that-
in terms of the word tight, it depends on the aircraft. Certain aircraft can fly closer, certain aircraft have to go further out because they're more powerful, so they need to go, their traffic pattern has to adjust to their performance.
So when you put that in there, what we did in the last brochure is we followed the standard left approach pattern that is in the advisory circular 9066C.
That's what that is.
Okay, and that is what that is, and that's what we used as the guideline. So please, we ask people to fly friendly and follow the approved AC traffic pattern. That is the standard traffic pattern, and that put people well on their base leg past the ridge of that hill. And I can see from the water towers in the school that it looks like this map is the same way. The base leg is, the turn to final is a quarter mile out, at least a quarter mile out, which is somewhere on the conservation over the other side of the ridge. And that's what I say, when the pilots who come in and do their base leg over the conservation, quality of life terrifically improves. What has happened, and I'm interested to find out if this is also reportable, are the people, and this is what I was afraid of with the new, without an accurate flight pattern, are the pilots, if I may go over to the, who come here, some of them go around the water towers, parallel the ridge, which is a
Paula, you
tree
gotta
top
stay
level.
there.
Okay, so there's the water towers there.
Right, I'll put my cursor there.
My concern with flying as tight a pattern is that there are consistently pilots who fly so close to those water towers, we're afraid they're going to hit it. And the other thing is they come in within those water towers, which when you look out the windows of a home on that hill, you're looking at eye level out your windows and seeing an aircraft go by. Extremely low. I know you look surprised, but personal experience. So my concern is about that kind of activity. And it happens quite often, and it tends to be repeat offenders. And these repeat offenders are recognizable aircraft, you know?
Now when our new website goes up, you'll have that noise comment form. There's a box for the tail number.
Oh, it's so difficult to put the tail number up when you're standing out of the belly of a plane.
Well, you just said that they were
But we
recognizable.
recognize their colored markings, so we know who they are. Well, we know who their planes are. So that is my concern with such an amorphous description of as tight as possible. When you're up there, you can see the planes coming, and it'd be nice to know where they are coming from. I'm not familiar with the traffic pattern on the other end, I'm sorry to say.
I can show you.
My other question with regards to flying close to that hill is the new development of the EPA endangerment finding. Is that their endangerment finding was the toxicity of lead emissions from the small planes that use that circling approach. What they have said, and this is just 6 months ago, that no level of exposure to lead is healthy for anybody, especially children. And so if there is a way to put in your fly friendly, I see that you already printed up the brochures, that with respect to the health of the citizens and the children in that school, to keep your planes high above that hill and as high as possible above that hill and away from the neighborhoods.
We added 100 feet
You did?
to the
So is
traffic
there
pattern altitude,
So pattern altitude is,
1,100 feet.
is that, and in the brochure, is that pattern altitude for approach or for going out?
No, for approach.
Okay, so for approach. All right, so thank you. Those were my questions.
Did you want to see the 6? Just real quick. Comes in over Jackknife Cove,
Is this the one that comes south towards the beach?
Yep. I mean, this is a transfer station here.
And where's Rocking Horse Nursery?
I have no idea.
Well, it's by Missouri, so where's Missouri's in
It's
that?
right in, it's right
It's
inside.
right by the gas station,
No,
Route
to the
28?
left, a little bit farther over, right in the middle. Underneath basically the runway 6, see where the 6 is? My daughter went there.
Don't forget, this is not a navigation map. They could be wider than this. They could be over the, when I fly this, I go right over the transfer station.
Oh, great, staying high and wide is preferable than staying tight and low and right above our rooftops.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my concern. So my other question on a totally different subject is I noticed that you decided not to speak to the EPA endangerment finding and the issue of the toxicity of leaded gasoline. You chose that not as a topic tonight, and I was wondering when you would be able to bring that discussion to the public. It is an endangerment finding. We've gone before the Board of Health, saw you there, Hunley and Mr. Schultz.
I thought we did have a discussion on that.
At the Board of Health.
Oh, that was at the Board of Health. That's right. We did do a discussion at the Board of Health. We did a presentation for them on the leaded gas situation.
And when will the Airport Commission itself take up the conversation of how to lower the exposure to the public?
We have not decided yet.
Well, I noticed that it wasn't on the agenda.
No, it wasn't, not for tonight. We were focusing on other things tonight.
You were focusing on other things. The memorandum, I mentioned this at the Board of Health, the memorandum about measures and strategies to increase the distance between the public that is on the campus of the airport from the airplanes. That was 12 years ago. And I would like to make an agenda request that you take that up as an agenda topic. You know, your
Okay.
next meeting is in May, and that will be the beginning of tourist season.
Yes,
Thanks so much.
thank you.
Chairman Harrison, can I make a comment
No.
on the approaches? Okay.
Mr. Oxens?
Okay, let me get. Terry, would it be possible to go to,
Could you identify yourself, please?
yeah, I'm sorry, jurisdictions, Chatham, on slide 7 of 15, please, if you could put that on the screen?
Which one, I'm sorry?
Slide 7 of 15?
Okay,
Oh,
hang
Who
on.
controls that? Okay.
Actually, Huntley's got
Oh.
control of that.
Oh, I'm on the website. Hold on. No, slide 7, I gotta get out of here. Hold on. There we go.
No,
I
slide
don't-
7 of 15?
Which,
Straight talk,
oh, Straight Talk.
slide 7 of 15.
Thank you.
Yeah,
There we go.
yeah. I've been living on Great Hill since 2008. And when I saw that straight talk slide, there are many issues that you've been talking about, trees and vernal pools and all that. My concern is on straight talk, and I was really concerned at what it said. The commission makes every effort to be straightforward, honest, and candid with the public. I've been living here since 2008, and I have seen the evolution of the airport. On the bottom bullet, you say there is no plan or hidden agenda for expansion of the airport or, and adding your words, increasing airport traffic or types of planes using the airport. Expansion, and to me, it is not important what people say, but what people do. With that statement, I would like to read a statement. I do not expect any answers from you, but I feel that the public needs to know that it's more important what the commission, and I'm not talking about just your commission, I'm talking about the commission over 16 years, okay? I've heard so much talk, but it's important what they do. That bullet should have read, there is a plan and an agenda for increasing air traffic at the airport and increasing the types of planes using the airport. Let me explain why I say that. This plan and increase agenda, in my opinion, started in 2009 because I was living there, when the airport added lights to the runway. Just 1 year earlier, in 2008, the aircraft operations were limited to sunrise to sunset. So by adding the lights as expected, there was an increase in aircraft operations. Trust me, I heard them. Soon, after lights were added, soon turboprop Pilatus and other corporate jets started landing at the Chatham airport at all hours of the day, 24 hours a day, at midnight, 24 hours a day. But since there was no jet fuel available, they had to fly to Hyannis to refuel. Awkward. So what did the airport do? They quickly added a 5,000-gallon jet fuel tank truck, where now the Pilates and the, not Pilates, I was corrected on the pronunciation, Pilatus, no longer needed to fly to Hyannis. This increased again, traffic increased. Slowly over the years, the Pilatus operations greatly increased from just few to over 600 operations by this year. Now, there are a lot of, I won't go into mandates, what FAA mandates that if a Pilatus exceeds 500 operations, you have to modify that airport to meet a design to plane, but that's a different issue. With today's presentation and all of its proposed enhancements planned for the airport, expansion of runway and cutting down trees, the Commission Airport's agenda opens a door to future increase in aircraft operation. It started in 2009, and it will continue far into the future. Why do I say that? For example, I believe there is a plan that the airport wants to install a 10,000-gallon jet fuel tank. Why? Because they know that there will be an increased demand for jet fuels because of the increase in aircraft flying into Chatham and a increased need for jet fuel. With all these changes in place, I know that the Airport Master Plan, FAA has said that our airport can have commercial air fly into it. Is that our future? Commercial air flying into Chatham? Is this what Chatham wants? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Oh, my goodness. Just one quick comment, Mr. Uxton's, is that I flew in here in 1987 and the runway was lighted. So the lights you're referring to are probably the updated lights.
I beg to differ. In 2008, my house overlooks the runway. And in 2009, the lights came on, not 2008. I see the runway. I see the lights turned on.
The lights have been there since 1980s.
Many, many years. Controlled lighting. Been there for a long time, since the 80s.
Okay. Yes, sir. Identify yourself, please.
I'm Bob Nelson from Chatham. I live up in the Great Hill.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate this. I
you.
think that the fly-friendly brochure is a nice way to go. One of the things I noticed here, please help CQX be a courteous neighbor by observing our noise abatement program. Do you plan on being proactive about noise?
The best
Bill,
thing.
you're saying yes?
Well, yes.
I mean,
we've got
proactivity. Do you plan on being proactive?
We've got that noise comment form so we can collect data.
Well, I mean, what if there's noise that you're aware of and somebody doesn't write it? Do you just ignore it, or are you going to be proactive and talk to that person because you're aware of it?
Yeah.
The first, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on you. The first filter is identifying those airplanes that are flying during the curfew period. So that's a program that's easily administered. Every month we'll get a report. We'll take a look at those airplanes that have come after, landed after 10 o'clock or departed after 10 o'clock and before 7 a.m. So that one's quite straightforward. We're also intending to proactively speak to the identified charter operators that we know are using the airport the most. You've got one up in New Hampshire that flies down here with PC-12s. The second one is primarily out of Waterbury, Connecticut. They sell timeshare in PC-12s, and apparently they have a lot of customers that own houses here in Chatham. So those two, we're going to proactively speak to them. The others that don't occur at night but are creating some kind of a problem, we're going to be relying on your feedback. Obviously, if we see something that, like we did on that example that I gave you, which was the antique airplane that flew out of here and just made all kinds of noise problems, we'll deal with those individually, either through phone call, letter, or in-person, type meeting. So to summarize, the answer is, in order to be proactive, first of all, you've got to establish a standard. And we believe that Flying Friendly helps establish that standard. It's a standard, it's an expectation. And when we see operators not following the expectation, it's our intent to talk to them and make them aware of it.
Okay, so let me see if I understand this correctly.
Sure.
We've taken the idea of noise abatement and we've shrunk it down a bit into the commercial area or this area. We've taken it from before 7 a.m. in the morning to after 10 p.m. at night. So now the area of concern has shrunk again of concern. But for those of us who live there 24/7, we have concern about 24/7. So I'm going to give you my first complaint.
Okay.
And I would like to see a written report. How are you going to deal with the noise of stick and rudder and the biplane? Because during the season, that plane flies over my house more than once, twice, 3 times a day, if not more than that, and the noise is unbelievably unbearable. So that's the thing I'd like to see. That's what I call about being proactive. Who's going to talk to Tim, and what are you going to do about it?
I will do that.
Thank you.
I will
I'd
talk
like
to
see.
Tim.
Will you write that down and comment that maybe in the newspaper so we can see?
Or at an airport commission meeting.
Why don't you put it in the newspaper where everybody can see it? because not everybody always gets here on time.
Okay, well, the airport commission
Be
meeting.
proactive.
The airport is a public meeting, so maybe it's appropriate to
Be proactive.
put it in writing, or maybe it's not.
Be
so.
proactive.
Okay.
Okay, good, thank you.
Before we take a second chance here, is there anyone else who would like to speak before we go to round two?
It'll be short, Huntley.
Okay, go ahead.
Paula Lofgren again. I'd like to add to Mr. Nelson's comment about being proactive. When the brochure was made for Fly Friendly 9 years ago, there were those pilots, similar to another gentleman who said that they were going to put it in the drawer and not look at it, be that as it may. But one of the things that was promised is that it would be displayed in the airport itself. And I'm not sure if it was last summer or the summer before, I walked in just to see where the fly-friendly brochures were. And the nice young gentleman behind the counter asked where he had them posted. And he looked around and he goes, oh, they're outside. And he walked outside and he looked outside and there were no fly-friendly brochures. And then he walked around the office, the whole area there, and couldn't find them. We looked everywhere, and it turned out that they were not color, beautiful color. They were black and white mimeograph, and they were stuck behind the advertisements, the tall, skinny advertisements for airport services. I took a picture of it. I can send it to you. So when you talk about being proactive, not just with people that from 10 to 7, who's there and what is your plan to be proactive and letting know that this is an important thing, that all pilots, this is important to the town, it's important to the character of the town, to keep us quiet and peaceful. And that doesn't happen when the brochures are stuck into place where nobody can see them and nobody knows where they are or that they exist. So that would be my request, to be proactive in getting the word out and speaking to the people who fly in here all the time or who have planes who are here all the time. Thank you. One little question, if I could. I asked for an agenda item for avgas amelioration, and I would love to request that you be in this room. This venue is wonderful. Lots of people can watch at home, runs multiple times during the week, and the quality of recording online is so much better than when you meet in the other room. And so I would request that as a public health service, that when you discuss leaded gasoline emissions, that you do it in this room and advertise it as much as you did this particular meeting, which was very well done. So thank you.
You're welcome.
There's an online,
I think
And-
that you already
Okay.
know who I am, Carol Bliss. And actually, Mr.
Carol-
Nelson took the
Carol-
word,
Hang on just a second. We have
I'm
someone
sorry.
online. So just hold on for a second.
Do you have David online?
Who?
David?
Okay.
It's me, Huntley. It's David
Oh, hi.
Bixby. I didn't want to comment yet. What do you mean by round two?
The second time someone
I
was
thought you said
coming
a
up,
minute ago. What?
the second time someone was coming up, I wanted to make sure everyone had their first chance.
Oh. Oh, okay, then I will defer to Carol and then I will raise my hand again.
All right? Ms. Bliss?
I'm still Carol Bliss. I live in West Chatham. We've been begging for these kind of communications for years since I've lived here. I've spoken to Tim many times. He's told me who the pilots that he spoke to were, who are local pilots that he didn't give me the names when we've had problems before with middle of the night or late night flights. The noise is unbearable, and the irony that our airport manager and flight-based operation is one of the biggest violators of the noise is really unconscionable. If you would just put yourself in our shoes for a change, it's not that we're against the airport, but this is the first time we've actually seen people say things that are going to follow through. So I know that Bill will follow through. That's why people think there's hidden agendas. That's not my word. That's what the word is on the street, because it hasn't always been this way. So I would just like to reiterate again, and I was the one who kind of pushed the air quality, because no air that's polluted is good for children, and the airport draws attention to a lot of children and families. And I hope that you'll take it seriously with Mr. Howard and see if we can't do something about his loud planes that are constant in the summer, constant, and usually around dinner time. So we know who the pilots are, and Tim knows who they are too. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right, David, you're on.
Okay, just trying to figure out this mic. Okay. As you can imagine, I've been taking a lot of notes. I've written you in the past few days with a lot of different questions. I think we could spend 2 hours on just the questions I've written down since this broadcast came on. I just think, in general, you've crammed way too much material into this session to really get into any kind of depth conversation to try to get to the bottom of a lot of issues. I think you need to hold these meetings frequently and hold follow-up meetings on your presentation. There's just too many questions. I'm not going to go through all of them. What I'd like to do is write to you and get a commitment from you that you would answer them, and then you can post them publicly someplace. I'm going to randomly look at some of these questions here.
David, if I may interrupt just for a second.
Yep.
You only have 5 minutes, so I would pick
Huntley, I don't mean to interrupt you, but that's the problem here. You can never get to the bottom of complicated questions in 5-minute discussions.
Well,
that's the problem.
Okay, well,
You
pick 2 or 3
that.
questions.
You guys talk. I'm talking now.
David,
you guys talk endlessly, but you don't listen to the public. Then you put 5-minute limits or 3-minute limits, and you make people talk before meetings instead of after when there's been discussion. You do understand, I hope, that that's part of the problem here?
David, pick 2 or 3 questions and put them out for the public that you might feel be interesting to everybody. Because your 5 minutes is running down.
What about my suggestion that I give you a list of questions and you answer them and publicly post them? Then you can give thoughtful, intelligent answers. What's wrong with that?
Nothing. No, you do that all the time.
Do you ever answer? Because I don't get answers generally. I can write and you can ignore, and then when we go public, it's 5 minutes. I don't know how you ever resolve anything like that. And you give me that look, but it's reality. My question, I'm going to focus right here on fly friendly. You have, I think that the way you have the fly friendly, it's based on, you go out to 1,000 feet elevation, and then I think you increased it to maybe 1,100 feet elevation before the turn, right?
Yes.
So my question is, why not extend that, instead of basing the turn on elevation, we got oceans on either end of the runway. Why not have people go all the way to the ocean? It's not that much farther before they make a turn, because that would eliminate a lot of noise.
David, I can answer that right now, or actually Mr. Schultz will, Commissioner Schultz will, because we have it right in the fly-friendly brochure.
Yeah, I apologize. I probably should have gone down each of the bullets that are in the brochure. I try to hit the high spots, but the third bullet in the brochure, and the fact that you're on the phone means you don't have the brochure. I apologize for that, but it's to climb out on runway heading until 1,100 feet MSL, that's mean sea level, and that was the big change from the old program, and over water, then proceed on course. So
Well,
I think your
concern-
I think your suggestion is captured in this.
Well, maybe, maybe not. Like on my end of the runway, runway 6, over water could be Sulphur Springs. But your Sulphur Springs is surrounded by residential development. If you went out another half mile, a quarter mile, you'd be over the Nantucket Sound, and you would eliminate so much more noise. A lot of the pilots are turning right at Sulphur Springs, and that's right in the heart of the neighborhoods.
Yeah, the intent is to make the turn over, in your case, Nantucket Sound. So we'll see if this has that effect. If we need to rewrite it to make that, to make that clearer, we certainly would consider doing that, because
don't
that
we
is
just
the intent.
David,
Why
can you
not-
see the screen?
Yes.
Yeah, see the third bullet there? That's what we're referring to. I brought it up for you.
Yeah, I read that. What I'm saying is, why not make it more clear and ask people to not turn until they're over Nantucket Sound, and specifically cite Nantucket Sound?
Yeah, we could do that. Yeah, we could do that.
That would be great.
That would be a welcome change, yeah.
And the second part of that is, we're talking about problems with night flight. I don't experience it as much as people who are directly under the flight path, but I would say 95% of the traffic at the airport is during the day. And for me, that's where 95% of the noise is. And I would say half the traffic at that airport is from the airport manager's touch and go operations, or stop and go, as he likes to call them. I think that business is responsible for half the noise in Chatham. And when I hear words like fly a tight traffic pattern, I'm concerned that his touch and go operations are going to fly out to Sulphur Springs and make a quick turn and fly right back on the other side of my house, and that the noise footprint is going to be focused more and more and more on a more concentrated, fewer number of houses. And I don't think that's fair to the people that live in the neighborhoods. Those touch and go operations are a big problem. That and this really loud biplane is, I mean, I don't know how you have a policy that it used to, I don't know if it still does, but your policy, yeah, there it is right there, minimize touch and go operations, and yet you have an airport manager whose business and livelihood depends on repeated and endless touch and go operations. You don't see the hypocrisy to that? But you don't see the problem to that? And I'm not.
I don't want to get into it with you right now, David, but I think you're kind of exaggerating there a little bit, and I just think that
I know what I experienced.
I think, it's a definition of touch and go. As far as I know, he goes to a full stop and taxis back to the other end of the runway, or drops the passengers and then comes back out.
It doesn't make any noise. It doesn't make any difference from my perspective whether he stops or not. We get the planes going out, we get them coming back, and it's just the same 2 or 3 planes over and over and over again. Frankly, if you eliminated that operation, I wouldn't have that big a problem with noise at that airport, from my perspective. It's
Okay.
the touch and goes, or the stop and goes that are a big problem. And not to pick so much on Tim, the problem is your airport management service agreement that you guys wrote and didn't allow people to comment on. That agreement incentivizes touch and goes. Why would you write an agreement to encourage frequent and repetitive noise operations for a town like Chatham?
David, you've got about a minute.
Yeah, I thought so.
And I've got someone waiting.
I didn't think I'd get an answer, but thank you.
I can't, some of those questions
Once
take some
again,
thought.
Let me talk, because you've limited me. Another question I have is, you reached out to the pilot community to see how they could reduce noise. Did you hold a similar meeting with the neighborhood people?
We're doing it right now. Hopefully we'll get some feedback from the neighbors.
You met in private with the pilots, but we're talking, were they limited to 5 minutes?
No, we didn't, it was more of a presentation, and then we just broke up. It was a discussion
It was
after that.
probably,
It wasn't the same format as this.
Yeah, exactly. It's a different format where pilots can speak and we can't. The other problem with the touch and goes is all of Tim's Plains burn leaded gas. When you do touch and go operations and you endlessly circle in a tight pattern over residential areas, you are spewing lead emissions over those areas. If you eliminated those touch and go operations, you'd eliminate probably half the lead emissions in Chatham.
Thank you. We've had some comments on that earlier this evening, and David, I'm going to have to go to the next person. Thank you.
Got it.
Thank you for allowing me to come back for a second question. This is a tree question this time. You say that owners whose trees are affected have been contacted and informed. Very good. But then you say the other properties who are in the 2024 map zone will not be notified that they are in this expanded zone until the amendment is approved.
That's
I mean-
by law.
By law, by what? That you don't have to educate the customer or tell the customer the truth? What's the law?
No, it's not a matter of telling the truth.
Okay, what's the law?
Everybody who is in that wider area
Right,
has been notified.
wider area, only with trees. Wider area, I'm in that area.
Okay?
I've not been notified.
Right.
There are other people who-
And if the bylaw passes, then we notify you. That's by Chapter 90.
But how do we know then, how should we vote at the town meeting whether to approve that change or not? We gotta be
I don't
informed.
follow you.
The list.
We do have a list, would be on that list, that we will publish prior, I said that earlier, that we will publish a list of all those people in those yellow strips prior to town meeting
Where is that going to be published?
on our website. Not the new one, but the current commission website. We'll get it up there as soon as we can.
Some people on Great Hill live out of town. Some people have a hard time working a computer. I even have a hard time accessing your website. If you have personally contacted the people whose trees are cut down, why can't you send us a letter telling us that our property is within the expanded zone,
Well,
so that we know how to vote?
We might be able to do that.
I mean, that's like, passing a law and then telling people, hey, we got to tear down your house because we passed the law, and, he was out of town and he didn't know that they passed the law, and then he comes back and his house is torn down. I mean, that doesn't make sense. You have to tell people what you're doing, and I will end there. Thank you very much for your time. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Do you have someone online, remote?
No, I just want to point out that you did make a reference about having the interactive map available as well.
Oh, that's right.
I just pulled up a sample, so again, the speaker's house is currently in the 1958, basically straddles the 58 and the 2024 map. So again, we'll have those lists and,
Were those people whose trees were cut down, did you just tell them your information is on the interactive? You said that you contacted them,
2 years
I believe, in
ago.
person.
2 years ago,
Right, and how did you contact them?
by a registered letter.
You didn't tell them, go on the interactive website and see if you're on, if your tree's going to be cut down? If you can contact them with a letter, why can't you contact me with a letter? Or is that against the law?
I didn't say we couldn't.
Why don't you? You can only tell me after law has been passed that, oh, you're in the zone.
Do I get to speak again, Huntley?
Is it something new?
No, it's an agreement with my neighbor, Mr. Uxton's, because I'm also in that yellow buffer zone. And I went back and rewatched the March 12th presentation that you made to the select board about the town warrant article. And one of the select board members was concerned that everybody understand who's in that new map is notified, not just if they were trees. So I went back and I double-checked, watched the recording. And so I counted, I blew it up, there's about 200 properties on there. And so 200 people who will be asked to vote on something at town meeting without understanding, even if, as you say, there's no difference to you, they should be informed, and to then notify us after it has passed, to me, is not transparent.
Okay.
Time and time again, people on the commission over the years have taken us to task that we shouldn't have bought in an approach zone. So we aren't in the 1958 map because we checked and chose our properties outside of an approach zone. So now what you're doing is changing the parameters of our properties. So you can shake your head, Mike, but on paper,
What we're changing is the map, not the approach zone. It's two different things.
but the
This is
map
the-
was the map at the
town
time
map.
was
It is
what was
not the-
published.
It's not the approach zone map. It's the town's map of the approach zone.
The town's map of the approach
Which
zone.
the FAA approach zone is as it is.
True.
It's already there. It's already that size.
But for public record, for someone who is moving here and who has moved here, and they go and do their homework and look at the bylaws and see that it's outside, as a matter of just personal respect to the people who are going to be affected by the change in that map, I agree with Mr. Uxton's, we should all be notified. Because if the website goes up on May 1st and there's an interactive map, I do not know the date of town meeting.
13th.
It's on the 13th. So you go live on the 1st, that gives people less than 2 weeks to even find out that they can check about that map. And so I would appreciate it if you did notify all of the parcels that are going to be underneath that new bylaw map. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else, online or otherwise? Oops.
We do have,
Yes?
David has his hand up again.
Okay, David.
It's David Bixby again.
Yep.
I just want to point out that, Chapter 90 requires you to notify the affected owners that are within the new map after approval in town meeting. There's no prohibition of you notifying them before town meeting, and I would suggest, as others have, as a courtesy at a minimum, you've got to contact all of them, not just the ones with the trees. The other issue I have is, you said you didn't use the 1958 map to identify trees and notify owners. And as Mr. Schultz pointed out, the map is there to identify trees that are non-conforming. It has nothing to do with the approaches. You used a map, you used the new map that you don't have yet, that is not yet approved or even legal, to identify trees and notify owners that they have to do something about their trees. You have no authority to do that if they're outside the current 1958 map. As an airport commission right now, with respect to these trees, you're operating as an agent of the town to administer the airport approach law. You're not an airport commission and with the full powers of the commission there. So it seems to me that are there any offending trees that are in the so-called yellow strip where you notified property owners? I've asked this a lot of times. I've never got an answer.
No, because the wider line on that graph, hang on.
So when you say no, you're saying no, there are no non-conforming trees in the yellow area?
What do you mean
currently?
by a non-conforming tree?
A non-conforming tree is a tree that penetrates, that you've identified as penetrating the approach zone and is a candidate for trimming or removal.
Okay, okay, just so I make sure I understand. The wider trapezoid on this graph, if you can see it, are the people that we contacted. They are already included in that area. They've been notified if they have trees that are subject to removal or trimming.
So to be clear, the yellow area, we're only talking about the yellow area. You have contacted owners of trees that are in the yellow area and advised them they need to agree to remove the trees.
The only up to where the approach path would affect them. Remember, this rises. So
Yeah, I
as you move,
understand all that.
as you move out toward the end.
Hundley, I understand
Okay,
that. My
all right.
question,
Just
again,
making
I'm
sure.
trying to be clear here. Did you contact owners with trees that are in the yellow area?
Yes.
Well, you have no authority to tell them to remove those trees under the law. The only law in effect and bylaw in effect right now is the 1958 map. You can contact those people if the new map is approved, but you didn't have the authority to tell them to remove their trees. You do understand that, don't you?
I understand what you're saying. I don't necessarily agree with it.
Well, have you read the law?
Yes.
Well,
And we've been going through it over the last 2 years, and no one has said that we're doing something that's illegal,
well, I think you are.
including our town council.
Well, I don't think your town council reads the law very carefully. I think the law is really clear on this. You're
Okay.
acting as an agent of the town to enforce the town bylaw. The town bylaw right now is limited to Area A.
Okay.
You
David?
can't contact people in order to remove trees outside of Area A until after the expanded zone has been approved in town meeting. I mean, I think that's pretty clear.
Okay, yeah, I agree, it is clear. David, your 5 minutes is up, and I've got someone online.
Here we go, Ed, thank you. 5 minutes. You gotta be kidding.
So John Seldorf is number 2.
Okay, go ahead, John.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to make a couple comments. Number one is a pilot that has a hangar and uses Chatham regularly. I appreciate the conversation and particularly the guidance that we're now getting for how to be a better user and neighbor in the airport area. We welcome changes because there's, I'll say, the minimums that the regulations require, and then there's what would be, noise abatement procedures or others that could be adopted for people to follow voluntarily. And I will tell you that we're happy to do that. We just need clear instructions of what that is. And I think what's been presented is that, but can be modified to even be more in keeping with people's interests. So thank you for giving us that clarity. One point I would like to make about the noise situation and its relationship to the clearing or the paring back of the trees in the approach zones. One of the things that people should be aware of is the relationship between the noise that's emitted by the plane, and it's mostly during the climb out or the takeoff, that is required to make an angle of climb. And the steeper the angle, the more power that needs to be given longer in order to achieve that angle. By having trees that are higher, if you will, an obstacle, we're required to be full power longer. And I find several airports that have noise abatement procedures that ask pilots to reduce power as soon as practical in order to minimize the noise over the residential area surrounding a neighborhood. And I think that one of the side benefits I'd point out of doing what is proposed in the tree pruning and maintenance should be the ability for planes to not have to fly such a steep departure, and you could ask them to, where practical, back off their power to reduce the noise on takeoff. So I just wanted to draw that attention, Chairman, and certainly follow up any questions if there are any on that matter.
I appreciate it, John. Thank you very much for your input. Thank you. You got another one?
You have one more online as well, Renee Haas.
Okay. Renee, go ahead.
Hi, it's Renee Haas, and I do live in Chatham. I just, wanted to say that I really appreciate the commission's making, an effort, to try to listen to the public. I've been listening to, all of the comments, and I think that, there are, very many good, and healthy comments. I just wanted to comment a little bit on that, these are comments that are made in quite a, a reasonable part by folks who are living pretty close to the airport, and they're annoyed by the noise. And, it's just, it's a known fact, that aircraft do make noise, and, efforts to minimize that noise are good and important. I just wanted to put a little context into the, notion that, there are benefits to the airport, which, don't come out in these kinds of discussions. And, in particular, when it comes down to the fact that, the airport provides, in the businesses of the airport, provides some things that are really positives for Chatham. It gives an opportunity for, kids that are in Chatham or in high school, or maybe they're in college, and also in the region, to learn how to fly. And yes, that, inherently involves, some noise. And I think it's worthwhile taking a look, for the airport manager, are there ways to, to reduce that? What Mr. Bixby calls touch and goes. They're not touch and goes. They are, landing, and, it's much more efficient to indeed do what are called touch and goes, which is just to touch the runway and then full power take off again. Well, what's been done has been, a significant mitigation in that noise level. But I understand, if you're an airport, neighbor, then kind of, any mitigation is, still, it could be better if there was nothing. It would be less noise if there were no flight school. It would be less noise if there were no sightseeing activity. But, I happen to look, if you Google, Chatham, what to do in Chatham and what's, fun, at the top of the ratings is the biplane. I mean, and frankly, for many people who are not neighbors of the airport, seeing that biplane going by is a sort of nostalgic image of Americana, which really embodies Chatham. So it's just worthwhile to note that there's an inherent conflict that, the Airport Commission, finds itself in a always, very difficult, position of trying to balance, those factors. I mean, the ideal for airport neighbors, personally, would be to, reduce airport traffic, reduce, noise immediately and so forth. But, it's just got to be put into context. And I also just want to put a little historical context into that, which is that the reality is that, in years past, there were a lot of aircraft that make a lot more noise than the ones that currently use the airport. In particular, smaller twin-engine aircraft. Two engines, they're very unpopular now because they're so expensive to operate, but they're so much noisier, than a single-engine aircraft. There used to be warbirds, with huge engines that were based in Chatham, and they didn't fly all that frequently, but when they did, they made, thunderous noise throughout the town. So, I just, for those people in the public who may have tuned in and not made comments, I just want them to be aware there are two sides, and I think the commission is really doing a yeoman's job in trying, very, very hard to, to create what is essentially always a conflict. Finally, I just wanted to point out that, long-term, the trend for Chatham Airport and airports in general is positive. I mean, we are on the dawn of seeing technology enable electric aircraft. Electric aircraft, are going to be significantly quieter than what we have and what we see today. So that's,
5 minutes, Huntley.
Oh, okay, and
5 minutes.
Yes.
finally, I just want to
I
point
was
out.
just letting him finish his thought, David.
Right, the leaded problem is a problem that's a national problem that is being hard worked and addressed and will go away in the next not many years.
Yep.
So
Renee-
that's just be kept in
Renee,
mind.
thank you for your comments. We're at 8 o'clock, and I had a stop at 8, and I don't see anyone else getting up, and I don't see anyone else on the board. So I think what we'll do is we'll bring this to a close. I thank everyone for your participation,
I move to adjourn.
for your comments, and do I have a second? Second? Okay, roll
Second.
call. Commissioner Burke?
Yes.
Commissioner Cortese?
Yes.
Commissioner Galen?
Yes.
Commissioner Hobeck?
Yes.
Commissioner Owens?
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz? Yes. And Commissioner Harrison says yes. Thank you all very, very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.